design is a very important aspect, especially if it is for the masses, because your responsibility is not only limited to a few people, it is for a large number of people who not only have the budget constraints, but they are looking for the value for their money. We at Cera appreciate and support the initiative by IIID in taking the design to masses.
There's no getting away from the fact that in designing there are trends, and these trends increasingly are about sustainability. They're about essentially ensuring harmony of what you're designing with the environment, with what lasts. Sometimes this goes back to old practices. Laurie Baker's famous houses in Kerala, for example, were all made of local materials. There was no air conditioning. They were designed to actually be air conditioned by the air and the elements. There were extraordinary attempts to harmonize tradition, local weather, and local realities. The variety of our country offers both great potential and great challenges in trying to ensure that modern trends in sustainable design are reflected right across the board in our wide and varied and diverse country.
And the panelists for today's topic are Habib Khan, Jabin Zakarias, Sanjeev Vidyarthi, Gayatri Shetty and Sanjeev Chatterjee.
Welcome to Design Yatra's episode on design, trends and styles. Designers have a paradoxical relationship with trends and styles, and somehow as a community we don't like it, because design we feel is much more deeper, layered and has more nuances than common man perceives it as. We as professional designers of repute, of some understanding, know that it's very superficial, but the paradox again is that gives us the clientele, that gives us the work, because people identify the end user, the people identify it as the face of design. And today we want to discuss this. And how is this related to Design Yatra? What we have done to address this issue? Have we been able to sensitize people about what design actually is all about? Have we been able to sensitize people about the depth of design? So Sanjeev, can we begin?
Designers have been critiqued of introducing new trends and style. When we're introducing trends and style, we are not really catering to immediate needs of masses, but we are sort of pandering to a small elitist clientele. On the other hand, designers actually do meaningful work which is way beyond only trends and style. To my mind, trends and style as more temporary in nature. They come and go. They last for a few years. I sort of relate them with specific personalities or specific cultural moments in time. So I would sort of think of these in the domains of popular culture, whereas on the other hand would be high culture for me. That would be design movements. For example, modern design movement would not be a trend or style, right? So I differentiate between trends and style and movements. And movements are in the domain of high culture.
Sanjeev, can we have your opinions?
Thanks to IIID and all of you to bring this very controversial area in design, which we all sense from a distance but never get in at the bottom of it. Very loosely speaking, trend is a certain direction in which we recognize change. And becoming a little more focused, it could be a mapping a popular short-term transformation in human outlook and its effects on human life. So these are the kind of two definitions with which I've been trying to think. I started with that. And a third line is, in a contemporary context, trend is born and is pushed towards certain result in form of gain, which is either popularity or material gain.
So Gayatri.
I think trends initially had a practical aspect to it. When you're thinking of architecture, the trend was more practical. But today, because of globalization, I think there is more a view of the marketing that comes in. And because of marketing, like you said, in terms of gain, where you look at the economical gain, people marketing things like Bali villas in Bangalore or Spanish haciendas somewhere else, it all becomes part of this marketing gain, which really then becomes some kind of a trend. So once that becomes more global, the consumer, I believe, really is looking at it from a point of view that I want this. And that is, of course, the result of marketing. Otherwise, before the marketing game, so to say, I doubt that people really went into these trends other than it being a practical reason.
Jabin, now what is your take and how does Design Yatra address this very vital issue?
Personally, these two words, trends and style, they have been very confusing for me. But then, when a design magazine asks you for an article, they essentially ask you to write about the current trend or the latest trend. If you are having your first appointment with a client, they ask you, what's your style? So even though we don't understand as professionals or don't give much of a weightage to these two words, the public and the masses and even
Perceived
elite
design
people,
as
they
yes.
all use this word too often. So sometimes I feel very stupid when I say that I don't really have any particular style, and they are also like not convinced how can an architect be without a style.
Style.
Even when we say that there is no style or anything, or probably there shouldn't be, all these styles or the trends evolved out of certain needs at a particular time, and therefore there is something to it. What were those needs? Do we have anything similar or relevant existing today? And if so, why are we just setting it aside?
Talking of traditions and then trends, have we been able to sensitize people about what design actually is all about? Have we been able to sensitize people about the depth of design and what actually it is in reality? Can you tell us, Sanjeev, what
Yeah,
do
so
you say?
if I
Taking
can
on
take from the idea of being temporary in nature, what Sanjeev was speaking, if one wants to understand trend better, then if it's seen vis-a-vis tradition, the idea of trend for me becomes much, much clearer. So what tradition provides is patience. Now, this is something which probably trend doesn't have to, because it moves with a certain pace and it has its effects. From the issue of time, trend is very human centric, it's very self centric, whereas tradition used to be self connection with the
community.
other.
With the community, the
Yes,
interface with the community.
nature, everything around them, and which makes a huge difference in terms of design, because when you design for the masses, your understanding of the environment is much, much better.
Can you tell us how the trends have been contemporized in the Indian context?
Talking about contemporary trends, I personally feel that of course all of us are caught up in it. I think contemporary design is again moving from the point of being practical and at the same time to see what we can absorb from what is global and what is traditional. So I would say that that is where probably a lot of Indian designers are a little concerned that the contemporary Indian design is yet to arrive. I believe so.
This brings again to a very contentious issue, Sanjeev, that's why I'm getting back to you. Is sustainability also a trend? The going green, being eco-friendly, is that perceived as a trend? By people and by designers? Can anyone tell us, what are the global trends, let's say?
This is that moment in time when it starts as a trend, the hippie generation taking lead, going back to the nature, but then becoming a movement pretty quickly. And today we would sort of think of sustainability as a movement. I think sustainability at this point in time is a good example of a trend that has become a movement with a strong philosophical base. I offer two examples here. One, I think, which is at this point in time for contemporary India is huge, is the idea of providing toilets in houses. It started perhaps as a trend, looking at the Britishers, that the toilet moved inside the house. And our Prime Minister sort of wants a toilet in every rural house as well, right? So that to my mind, we can think that as starting off as a trend, but now a movement of public hygiene. So that I think articulates this example well. But on the other extreme, a bad example, right? A bad example of this phenomena would be use of glass in buildings.
Oh, you're touching a very, very touchy point, sensitive
Right? So
point.
I think northern climates, places in North America and Canada and northern Europe, we want more sunlight, we want more light inside the building, so we would have big glazing, especially on the northern side. And Indian designers, and this I would think of as a bad trend, it's stupidity at some level, that in such a tropical climate where there's intense heat, that we use vast amount of glazing and glass on, I mean, all of us know this, on the southern and all facades of the building, right? So that is a bad trend. I think at that level, designers are custodians of good practices. They are the experts in the field, and it's part of their service to the profession and the larger society.
But how can you say that? I mean, this ideally is fine,
Ideally
but
is
how do you say that? How do you ensure that 90% of my designers are going to follow what you're saying?
I don't think we can ensure that. The only way we can ensure this is by educating them well.
You can educate designers to any extent. It's not that they are not educated even now. But unless we take this message or the right perspective to the masses, it's not going to really
So Design Yatra is
percolate and
precisely
happen.
doing that.
The understanding about what will be good for them or what will be the most relevant, truthful style in which you can live comfortably, that is terribly lacking. And in this area, architectural journalism is not at all there.
Is missing.
It's
Missing from
totally
the Indian
missing.
scene.
It's
there.
true for the whole of India. Do we have the patience and the time to look at what we have? And what does trend take us to, where does it take us to ultimately? You look at the waste that we generate. Trend is equal to waste. And who is paying for those, the waste generation? I am paying for it. Who is cleaning that up? I don't know. The very thing that I would personally do is to recognize first what we have and probably look at trend setting itself, and that dialogue should be initiated with the masses. That look, if you want to go after a trend, question. If you think you still need it, I mean, if it really make your life better, go for it. But if it doesn't, then don't just go blindly. And that's what seems to be happening. So if India has to move forward in the 20th century, do I have an image of where we are going? I see there is a series of trends being copied. So the faster we copy and we catch up, we believe that we are moving in a certain direction. But is that the direction that India needs? Or there have been directions which were sparked off earlier, and we could give it a completely new and fresh meaning. If that kind of an attitude, if we are following a trend, if I'm designing something that is not sustainable, where am I heading? So this is the question that I have to answer.
See, two things here. Now, one is, so I think people make very practical judgments, and people make practical judgments based on two ideas. One is cultural preferences and practical needs. And that is the kind of design we should be promoting. A design which is more informed by our tradition, but on the other hand, a design more informed by practical need.
Gayatri.
I think we have a great responsibility as designers of our time.
Thank you so much. We had a wonderful discussion, guys. Once again, thank you.
Thank you.